In the installation video, we created an AccountExplorer. The reason we use this name will become apparent as we go. I'll start the app by double-clicking on it. When you first start a mini-DApp, you're required to create a project file, which contains a list of addresses. I'll call this one My Project. And I'll add some of my own addresses, trueblocks.eth, quickblocks.eth, and unchainedindex.eth. Once I press enter here, Cadra, which I mentioned in the first video and is a long-running systems process that indexes the chain, will create what we call monitors for each of these addresses. From then on, Cadra extracts and caches the address's data anytime it appears on the block. This is why our applications are as fast as they are. Cadra builds binary caches for every monitored address. I'll create this project now. And you can see that these three addresses that I added are now in the file. And if I go to monitors, they're also being monitored. And Cadra, which is here, is watching these three addresses and constantly updating their transactions. Now I can select one of these addresses. I'll take TrueBlocks wallet, and I'm looking at the history of the TrueBlocks wallet. So what is this application? Why do we call it an Account Explorer? Is this just a blockchain explorer? The answer to that question is no. This is not a blockchain explorer. End users care nothing about blocks. They care about addresses or their own accounts. That's why we call it an Account Explorer. You're looking at every transaction that ever happened, all 4,300 of them, on this address. Okay, so let's get started. Like most people, this is how I typically interact with Web3. If I want to check a transaction, I go to Etherscan. If I want to change my ENS domains, I have to go to ENS. If I want to check on a Gitcoin grant, I go to Gitcoin. How about my token approvals? If I want to revoke them, I go to revoke.cash. Websites all the way down. This is counter to the decentralized ethos. It's not private, it's slow, it's cumbersome. These websites could be lying to me. Governments could be censoring these websites. It's wrong in literally every way. Where is the decentralization? The answer to this is that there is no decentralization. The Account Explorer that we spoke of earlier. I'm going to go to the transactions view. And right here on the first page, you see interactions with ENS, Giveth, DAI, Common Stack. If I scroll a few pages ahead, you can see Gitcoin here. If I go to the very end of this list of transactions, which is what I'm showing you, I can see me revoking my own approvals, which I found by looking at open approvals. So all of this is right here in a single interface, the TrueBlocks Account Explorer. There's no web pages, no one's watching over my shoulder. This is perfect privacy. And look how fast this is. I defy you to find anyone that can scroll through a transaction history faster than this. This is 350 pages of transactions. We can even search. We can look for the ENS transactions or the Gitcoin transactions. This is how blockchain data should be. It should be ultra fast, complete, and reproducible directly from chain data, all in a single, perfectly private local interface. This is the idea we call user centrism. I want to discuss two other features that come out of the box with a mini DApp. Do you see this here? This is called the articulated call, or in the logs, it's called the articulated logs. This is TrueBlocks automatically enhances the blockchain data, whether it's transactions or logs or traces, by doing something we call articulating the data. For example, this transaction was a token transfer, and you can see that we've articulated the data here. This is a vote, and you can see that we articulated the data here. And just like articulation, you can see that all of these addresses are named. Most of the addresses you see have a name attached to them. Again, this comes out of the box with TrueBlocks. Of course, we don't know your addresses, so you have to name these addresses yourself, but we give you 26,000 addresses that we know of. You can create and manage your names here on this Names tab. I'll come back to this later. Next, we'll look at a few of the tabs at the top of the screen here. You can see they're broken into three sections by these dividers. To the right are transactions, withdrawals, receipts, logs, and traces. This data comes straight from the RPC, cached by the SDK, of course, for speed. And because we're running our own node, we know that this data is accurate, untampered with, and uncensorable. Let's look at this first transaction in the account. I sent 5 Ether from my Coinbase address to the TrueBlocks wallet. Over here, this data is, we call it derived data because we took the original transactional data and we summarized, filtered, enhanced this data into what we call derived data. Let's look at the Statements tab. So this is basically a bank statement. It has a beginning balance, income, outflow, and ending balance. And this is the same transaction where I had a 0 balance, I sent 5 in, and the ending balance was 5. And we then reconcile. We have a check here that reconciles. So what we can do is we can show that every movement of any asset or ether across the entire history of this address, we can reconcile, which means that we know that we have every transaction. The Assets tab is another example of derived data. This shows the current balance of every ether and every token that this address owns. Here we just summarize the account statements. And here we're showing the history of the balances of every one of these assets. And here you can see the long tail of the asset list. All of these are airdrops where people just dropped a token into my address. I never even knew these were here. And this shows that TrueBlocks finds every asset it ever owned. So the SDK allows TrueBlocks, and if you choose to use this software, you as the developer, to build all sorts of derived data. These are only a few examples. Another example is open approvals, which I'll show you in another demo. The SDK's type system and excellent documentation make mixing and matching the data, summarizing it, searching it, filtering it, and exporting it very easy. Given the open source nature of all of our code and the design choices we made related to how the data gets shared, we think we've built a true public good. We will close out this first demo by showing the remaining menu choices we haven't mentioned before. We discussed naming earlier. The Names menu allows you to review named addresses. Out of the box, you get 26,000 pre-canned addresses. These are things we've collected over the years. You can also create and manage your own customized names. And in the future, we'll even allow you to publish your own customized names if you choose to. Names help you better understand your activity, and they come built in with every mini app. The ABIs tab is interesting as well. We discussed articulation earlier. Every time the system displays a transaction, a log, or a trace, it tries to articulate the smart contract calls. This requires the system search for and download ABIs. We do this from Etherscan, unfortunately. We're looking into Sourcify. This is another very important way that the system allows you to get at all your data and understand what it's doing. This feature is built in to the apps. Once we have ABIs, something really interesting happens. We can use the ABI to automatically generate UIs. This is an idea from way back in 2015 when the Mist browser was first out. In the Mist browser, the smart contract UI was generated from the ABI automatically. Does anyone remember localhost 8545? Imagine automatically generated local UIs or a local Uniswap front end without a front end fee. Here's a great website we found called ABI Ninja that allows you to do basically this. Now this is a website, so as soon as I try to interact with this, somebody's going to watch what I'm doing, so I don't like that. Going back to the Account Explorer, here you can interact with smart contracts and your address is never exposed. This is what we mean when we say permissionless or decentralized. Another tab here is called Unchained. And in this tab, we're showing the Unchained index that's built by Cadra, which is running continually in the background. And the Unchained index is the index that we share through IPFS, and we've talked about that in many other places. In the next video, we're going to demonstrate the Wallet Connect button and how we can use this tool much like a wallet. It's actually a wallet with a perfect history, and every mini dApp comes built with that in as well. And very quickly, I just want to mention that there's context-sensitive help. Whichever tab, whichever view you're looking at, you can get help on all the different tabs and so forth. One final word. On our third demo, we're going to talk about something called Dolly Dress, which is sort of just a fun application that we built that shows the broad applications of this framework. Thank you. And remember, this application, all of these features were built with a single command line, create local app.